Hello everyone and welcome back to Mikey Reacts. Today we've got a great one for you. As you guys know, I might have reacted to about 5 or 6 Lost in the Pond videos. It's only a small portion of my videos. I think I've got about 250 videos out at the moment. But I'm really enjoying listening to Laurence speak. This is one from 11 months ago. It's called Let's Talk About American Social Etiquette. Again, this is a great one for me to learn from since I am moving to the US. I know each region is completely different, but I'm sure that there are definitely some generalizations, and this is really a good way for me to learn. So let's get to it. Before we do that, don't forget, if you like this this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy the channel, subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because every subscription helps us grow, and it's absolutely amazing the support that you guys are showing us. So if you also want to see more content that is more up your street in terms of politics and American history, you can head over to Patreon. It's only $5 per month, and it's about 2 to 3 videos per day, and you can get as much content as much exclusive content as you want. There should already be about 15 videos out for you guys to have a look at. So let's get to Laurence from Lost in the Pond. Let's talk about American social etiquette.
Hello, I'm Laurence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to social etiquette. It's fair to say that our two nations utilize completely different social conventions, something I was reminded about by one of my patrons who messaged me this. I saw a somewhat viral post where in certain northern European nations people have experienced being at a friend's house and their family would have dinner, but while their friend would go eat, they themselves were not even asked to join. So my question is, how do Brits handle feeding visitors to their homes? The first thing that we say to guests is, sorry for the mess, even amid a completely pristine house. After that, I've definitely been to UK houses where I was invited to eat with the household, and others where I was not.
Yeah, no, I've never experienced that. I don't think that's a European thing. I think that just might have been a them thing, to be honest with you.
Hey, I was always fine with being left out, unless they cruelly dangled before me a plate of sausage rolls, or pork pies, or a Sunday roast. I've just realised I was never fine with this. I think Americans are just more predisposed toward hospitality. And this is helped by the fact that fridges are often packed with leftovers, so there's just more to go around. On top of this, Americans just place more emphasis on things like family get-togethers. This is often coupled with an open house mentality, meaning that anyone from family siblings to my wife's cousin's ex-boyfriend Braden might also help himself to a third plate of chicken wings. In fact, he did. At such gatherings, I've often heard Americans say something along the lines of, "There's coffee in the pot, knock yourself out." And while that last phrase isn't meant to be taken literally, I think people underestimate how much coffee I'm willing to drink, which brings...
Yeah, the other thing is, you know, like filter coffee machines. I mean, of course we have them in the UK, but they're not actually that common in households. From my experience.
It's been observed by several experts, but also BuzzFeed, that Americans associate having a catch-up with consuming caffeine. And it's true, you'll often hear phrases like, "Wanna talk about this over coffee?" Of course, you might think that the British equivalent of this would somehow involve tea, but the more likely candidate from experience is beer. However, Americans have a much different relationship with alcohol, which serves less as a vehicle for casual afternoon chatter and more as an evening social lubricant every now and then. The concept of meeting for coffee fits America's relationship with coffee, which is consumed among Americans at 1.5 times the per capita rate of British people.
Not me. I drink like a ridiculous amount of coffee.
In contrast to alcohol, coffee helps kick the brain into action, leading to livelier conversations as it stimulates those in attendance. That wasn't a euphemism. And while coffee houses and chains are gradually becoming more popular in Britain, they've still got a way to go to catch up with the selection offered up in America, not to mention the coffee sizes.
Yeah, that's very fair.
I've often heard that America, despite its association with wealth and material possessions, doesn't like to talk about money. In fact, this was backed up in recent studies that found Americans would sooner fill their conversations with topics such as relationships, mental health, race, sex, and politics than with details about their earnings. It's been a while for me, but I'm not sure this was altogether different in Britain. For instance, I never knew how much my British family members were making. Additionally...
Look, like, same for us. My parents don't know how much I make. The only person that would know how much I make is Tasha, my fiance, but that's pretty much it. No one else, really.
There was even a time when I myself felt uncomfortable asking people to support Lost in the Pond on Patreon, which you can do at patreon.com/lostinthepond. But it's possible that discomfort around money is even more intense in America, simply because the nation is home to a drastic gap between the rich and poor. Discussing one's...
Okay, so I want to talk about this really, really briefly. Yes, there's a drastic gap between the rich and the poor in the United States, but to say that is only the case in the US and doesn't occur in Britain is ridiculous. On the street that I grew up in, you had families that were in houses worth over $1 million, and you had families that were in social housing. Opposite ends of the street, but still the same street. So actually, it's quite prevalent everywhere. I experienced it very much growing up. In fact, I didn't grow up very wealthy at all. I would say on the low end of middle class, so not exactly poor. But I went to a school in a really, really wealthy area where actually the average house price around was about £2 to £3 million. That was back in 2010, where the exchange rate was double. So that would have been about $6 million back in 2010. So if you consider that, you actually realize that there is a huge wage gap, a huge wealth gap, especially, you know, where I grew up. It was a very, very weird dichotomy of, in one town, very, very wealthy and very, very poor, and then of course you had in the middle, which was like how I grew up. Not to tell you exactly how I grew up, but yeah.
Income has the potential to make those with less feel bad, whether it is they who are doing the talking or the listening. For this reason and a variety of others, I very rarely had discussions with Americans that revealed either party's financial worth. But Americans do talk. The suggestion has often been that they talk too much, and certainly a few decibels above everybody else. But I'm not entirely convinced that this is always true or particularly unique to Americans. In Britain, I had plenty of loud friends, something that became particularly apparent after those beers. And even I might become loud and undignified if I win Vlogger of the Year at the 2022 Blogosphere Awards. To make that happen, go to blogosphere.biz/awards and vote for me once you get to step 3. And don't forget to vote for those two Brits in the travel category. Perhaps the stereotype persists because of how Americans present themselves abroad, or because of the often hand-up nature of their film characters. But on the whole, I've never really found Americans to be much louder than the British.
Yeah, me neither.
One exception to this might present itself at those family get-togethers. But these are not so widespread a feature of British life, and it's not easy to draw a comparison.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not just volume, it's also the words we use. One weird criticism that often gets levelled at Americans is that they insert like between every other word. Firstly, we should keep in mind that this is a generational thing, right? Yeah. I mean, it's hard to imagine Abraham Lincoln saying 7 years ago, although it might have helped to pad out the Gettysburg Address, which was surprisingly brief. Yeah. But the American use of like is often the source of derision among Brits, even though through American influence, the phenomenon has long since caught on in Britain too. I've always thought of it as a hesitation marker, like and ah, an interjection that acts as an antidote to a sudden uncomfortable silence.
That's a big criticism that I've had before in the past, is that when I'm not exactly sure what to say in any given moment, or I can't get it out fast enough, I use the word You might have noticed it in my videos. I really am trying to get rid of it, but everyone does it really. And like, again, is a generational thing. In fact, it's my generation that does it, but I try not to do that at all. I don't think I've ever had that issue, to be honest with you. My issue has always been
In that sense, it's a perfectly natural occurrence within human speech. But I know what you're thinking. Ooh, Laurence, why does it have to be the word like and not some other monosyllabic word like ah? Well, the truth is, you could also say the same about and It's just the way English panned out, and that's all right by me. I've often spoken about how Americans are more direct, but deep down, how does this present itself? Well, to answer that question, I should use my own country's style of speech for comparison. British people are more likely to employ linguistic techniques that help avoid any perceived conflict. Tag questions. That's when you make a command or a statement and conclude it with an adjoining question. For example, you should make sure not to burn the French fries, shouldn't you? That shouldn't you at the end changes everything. It softens the imperative clause that came before it, ensuring that the speaker doesn't come off as too militant or pushy. The British specialise in tag questions, whereas Americans don't typically use them in this way at all. Instead, they might simply say, "Be sure not to burn the French fries again, Laurence." Not that I know that from experience. I've heard it said, and I've noticed myself, that Americans sometimes take a long time to exit a social activity. Now, this is not usually because they feel awkward about doing so. It's more because they have this remarkable capacity for saving their most critical family discussions for when their introvert spouse has just put on their coat. I can recall numerous times when an unannounced inter-sibling conversation added 30 minutes to our exit strategy, and all because someone brought up politics. The British equivalent of this usually manifests not in person but over the phone. With British people,
You know, sorry to stop again, but in the UK, politics aren't that much of a contentious issue. You're not going to really sit around with family members and talk about politics. That is more of an American thing, but that's perfectly fine. But I do know that it has created divides, especially so very much recently, and even amongst family members. It's a very big shame, but that's not really a common occurrence in the UK, to be honest. No.
the words yep and goodbye 47 times in succession before guiltily ending the call. Yep, goodbye, yep, goodbye, yep, goodbye.
Yeah.
And on that note, it's probably time for me to say my own goodbyes. I'm Laurence Brown. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that I don't have to. Until the next video, goodbye.
He's great, and a lot of the things you can tell he's an intelligent person, and he's really thought these videos through. You can tell that he has a lot to say, and I think he keeps producing videos, and a lot of the titles that you see are initially might seem ridiculous, like 7 Animals that you don't, and stuff like that, or let's talk about American social etiquette. That's not a ridiculous title by any stretch of things, but or like for example 5 ways British and American families are different. I've just seen it come up now. You would think that there really wouldn't be that much difference, but you can find these small minute differences that really reflect the difference in our culture. There's a lot of similarities between Americans and Brits. Of course, the American culture has been derived from European culture, but had been adapted to being isolated from the rest of Europe, or from Europe, because of course, you know, continentally it's not American at all, it's not European at all, but a lot of the descendants are European, and so therefore the culture was the descending culture was European, and then has been adapted to been Americanized, what we now know as Americanized. So I find him really interesting. His topics are really good. I absolutely love watching him, and he's very entertaining. I will keep watching Laurence, and I'll keep recording the videos when I do watch them, because there's no point in me watching them by myself on a reaction channel, right? Otherwise you're not going to see how I react. But I think he's absolutely great. If you guys want to know anything about UK British culture, just give me a comment down below, or you can find my email underneath this video in the description. You can send me an email. Of course, it is my personal email, but it is for this channel, so feel free to message me any questions. Just hold the abuse if you're that way inclined, but no, I'm joking. But I'll see you on the next one, guys. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, like the video and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you over on Patreon when you make that move. I promise you, you will not regret it. I'll see you soon, guys.